Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linda Smith, and I am here to present to you your Dynamics SL year-end seminar. I'd just like to go through a little bit of housekeeping before I get into everything. I guess if you have a question, well, I guess first I want to say that if you want to Zoom, there's a orange button at the top corner that you can actually go to a bigger screen. But if you have a question to ask, you can use that same thing at the top right corner to expand it so that you can actually type your question and ask. Sorry. And then once you do that, you can type the question, and what I'm going to try to do is as I'm going through, I'm going to stop and see if there's any questions about what I went over, and then go for at the very end, of course, if there's anything additional to go through. A little bit about myself. I've been with Brittonford. I've been a consultant with Brittonford for about 12 years. Prior to that, I sat in y'all's seat. I was a assistant controller and worked for many, many years, more than 20 years experience in the accounting field with working on all of these different modules and getting through year ends. So I know pretty much. So again, if you have any questions, you can just let me know, and we'll see if we can help you. So what I've got is I'm kind of going to jump from slides and then show things within Solomon. I also have a checklist I want to show you, talk about the year-end updates and all of that. So to start with, I'm going to go to what am I going to show you? So basically the year-end updates. I'm going to talk about the year-end closings of the different modules, the order that it should be done, maybe some hints and tips and things you should run in order to balance. And then, of course, there's a checklist at the very end, which is available. You just ask me, and I will send it to you. That's kind of what I'm going to hopefully go over everything that you have questions about. All right, so what is in the year-end updates? We just received year-end updates. They finally put them out on Partner Source and Customer Source last week. What is actually being changed? There are changes in the calculations for payroll for W-2s and the magnetic media filing for the W-2s. There are also changes to the 1099s, but not so much. There are the forms, but it's like labels on the forms. So if you have pre-printed forms, there's probably not a big deal, but if you're a foreign entity or foreign payments, you definitely should do the year-end update. Who should do it? Of course, anybody who's doing W-2s. And then, of course, if you're issuing a magnetic media filing, there's a change that's in there with a space that you may need in order to actually file with the IRS. That's kind of a highlight I can show you. I'm going to show you a list of things that they show. So for the year-end updates, also Microsoft came through and said they will only be supplying year-end updates for SL 2011 systems. So anybody out there who's on an older version, anything less than 2011, and what I mean by that is when you go into your help about, so you go into Solomon, if you go to your help, you go to your about, you're going to go in here. You're going to say this says SL11 Feature Pack 1. If you're on Solomon 7 or prior, you will see when you go to your help about, it's going to look like this. Your help is way over here, and it says SL7 something, something, something. If you're on that, we do not have year-end updates. Now, you could probably still do the forms. You may need to buy a third-party one if your forms, if you print and they don't fit, or we could modify the report, like in Crystal reports, to make them print correctly. But I can say that as far as what comes out of the box, I do not have any year-end updates that I can supply to you because Microsoft is actually no longer even supporting. Well, they're supporting SP4. But it's only for a little bit longer, so it means I can ask them questions. But if you need to do reports or anything like that, I may not be able to assist you with an older version. That's why we're really encouraging everybody to try to upgrade to SL 2011, as you know, the support is really ending on the older versions of SL. Again, if you have any questions about that, you can ask us. Or if you print to paper or something and they're just a smidgen off, we can easily use Crystal Reports to fix the 1099s. Okay. As far as your year-end updates, as I said, your 1099s, there's some label changes that, identify for the foreign entities. The electronic filing has got like a additional formatting for foreign vendor addresses, plus your payer A and B forms, again, have the foreign address for foreign entities. As far as your W-2s, the actual form itself hadn't, but the electronic filing has. And then the other thing I found when I went through the document is that with every, with the year-end update, it also is including bug fixes that you should probably have applied. I had that document as well. It comes with the year-end update. This shows that for bug corrections, for like if you're on plain SL 2011, there are some year-end updates for your 2011, 2012, and then some bug fixes. If you're on Service Pack 1, there's all additional bug fixes as well. And then, of course, Feature Pack 1 has got your year-end 2012 and additional 941 bug fixes. And then if you're on SP2, which is the latest and greatest, there are no bug fixes, but of course you still have fixes to the 941s or the W-2s and the 1099s that I brought up. This document is included as part of the year-end update. So if you needed to look at it, it's got a lot of really good information in it about how to help you with things you might be having issues with after you've applied it, as well as how to file with the IRS for the magnetic media and so on. I just wanted to show that to you. Okay, order forms. Usually we tell people that, the best place to go is going to be Deluxe Forms because we know for sure that they're compatible with our system. They do the W-2s, they do the 1099s and the checks and, envelopes and everything you would need. Usually I would say, get them early enough so you're not having to stress about having them on hand when you actually have to go through. And you can either go to the Microsoft, businesschecks.com. You can call the 1-800 number. Of course, you can always Google Deluxe Forms and place your order. Okay, so year-end closing. So there's a particular order that you really want to go through when you're closing the year, and the reason why is they all just sort of go after each other. So you want to do your payroll, make sure that that's all posted. Then you want to do your purchasing. Then from purchasing, you go into your order management and make sure all your sales orders are done. Your inventory, then your project time and expense, which is your expenses and labor. And then you would allocator and flex billings for your invoicing. Then after that, your accounts receivable, your payables, your cash manager, project control, and then of course your last is usually the general ledger. And now I'm going to go through hints and tips for each one of those, show you some reports you can run, and here we go. So first one you want to close is your payroll. So in the payroll, you've got to do your 941, your federal tax worksheet. You want to do your unemployment worksheet. You want to do your earnings deductions reports in details and totals. You need to balance your 941 and your unemployment worksheet to the earnings and deductions, tick and tie everything. You want to balance your earnings and deduction report to your GL balances. And then after you do all of that, you want to actually close the module And then, of course, if there's any year-end updates as far as tax tables and all of that, before you process your payroll for the next, for 2014, you want to make sure you update your earnings and your deductions and, all the different things that come out at the beginning of the year. I usually, Microsoft will put those out like the second week of January, so that you can either upload them or you can get the circulars and do them yourselves. I know a lot of people like to do them themselves. So of course in there, if you go into here, I'll close that. These, if I go into your payroll, of course that's what I'm talking about, your quarterly reports, your unemployment report, your earnings and deductions, and as I said, just tick and tie your deduction. If you do make changes to any of your, let's say, once you've balanced everything and you're sure, you want to be sure you run your W-2s to paper. You want to make sure that everything is exactly the way you want it. You want to make sure that, if you print them to paper, you can, or you can, print a file nowadays. It's just as easy, and then compare everything. You don't want to waste forms if at all possible. Sometimes I make copies of the forms and then print on them just to see if they somewhat line up correctly. Those are just sort of high-level way. And if you do make any changes and you have to go into the deductions and so on, just be sure you recalculate your W-2s before you try printing them again. So they're just tips and tricks. That's kind of it on payroll. Like I said, for payroll, for closing, that would be done within the general ledger. In the GL, you're closing it closes majority of the modules, not all of them, but in this closing screen, whenever you go to close, you want to be sure that you're closing for the year and not for the period. So that's really important. I know, throughout the year you're going through period, but when you are closing the year, you want to make sure you do the year. When you close the year, it knows what it's supposed to do, and, beginning balances, ending balances, and moves, all the records forward so you can start the new year. And if you accidentally click period, it will give you a warning and say that they can't do it. So for this one in particular, of course, I'm not going to do GL. I should have done this one. And just showed for the year, and I would close it for the year. Some of the reports that you want to print out, and again, once they're all balanced, you want to make sure that, like I said, print to file, print to paper. Nowadays, it's so much easier to print to file. So just under your printer settings, you can pick that you want to print to file, an Adobe format or whatever. And this holds true for, of course, for every single module. All right. So that's payroll. Any questions in payroll? Okay, I'm going to move forward. So the next thing that you should close would be your purchasing. So in purchasing, as with every module, you want to be sure that, and I forgot to mention that, you want to make sure all your batches are posted. Of course, you do the same thing with payroll. You want to make sure that there are no batches hanging out there that haven't been posted. Payroll is pretty on top of things. With some of these other modules, you may have things on hold. So what I suggest you do is to run like the batch register. First thing I would do, and I've created templates for most of my reports. So if I load this template, and I've changed this to, I want 1999. And if I do here, I'm going to say where my batch status, and this is on every single batch, it will have a status field. So you'd say batch status is in, I want anything that is either balanced, hold, or suspended. You're basically looking for anything that has not been released or is open within the module. So again, if I do my print preview, I say yes, that just says it's sorting differently. In this case, I have nothing that's on hold or suspended. If I did, it would give me a laundry list. I could look under batch status and try to say, okay, what's on hold? Clear it up. if I had print also the purchase order register. What I want to do here is, again, it's year end. You kind of want to do some housekeeping. So if you go through, and I'm just looking for anything within the year that for a purchase order that's still open, anything that's a purchase order, like I may want to cancel it. It may be that we decided not to buy it, so I want to cancel the purchase order. It may be that somebody just didn't finish completing it. So you want to go through your laundry list of that. You also want to do this for your PO receipts as well. You want to make sure, here we again, if I load my template, I come into here, I go back. Did I load that? Yes, I did. And yes. So this is going to show me any batches I have on hold or suspended or whatever, and try to resolve them. Do I want to post it? Don't I want to post it? Do I need it for accounts payable? You know, I have one batch. So I can go through and say, okay, do I need this receipt? Was another receipt done? So you're just trying to do housekeeping. Another report you may want to run is your unvouchered report, which means that you've actually created a receipt, but an accounts payable voucher has not been attached to it. So are there truly, or did somebody do an AP and forget to pick the PO? So that's another good report that you may want to run. And once you get all those done, and you're sure that you tie, or you're sure that everything's been posted, you may want to run your the commitments. You want to also be sure it's cleaned up. So your commitments, your PO commitments that go to project, and some other reports that are out there. Your cash manager also has like commitments on it. Any of your cash flows. So it's just a good idea to clean up after yourself. Probably printing it for year end. You may want to do, your open PO register, print to file. Okay. Any questions on purchasing? It's kind of a quick one because it's once you get it tied, then it's the other modules that really need it. Okay. I do not see any questions. So I'm going to move on to the next one. Your next after purchasing is going to be order management. Again, cleaning up after yourself. You want to be sure that if you run your sales orders, you're looking for any sales order that's maybe a quote out there, or that it's still open. Maybe it should have been canceled. Maybe it should have been closed. Again, I have a template, so if I load my template, I'm looking for anything that hasn't been completed yet. If I do my print preview, it might be that somebody decided that, you did a quote a long time ago and you just never canceled it, and it's no longer needed. I also know that, nowadays there are, based on the type of order that you do, you can set it up that it'll close itself. But if you do your housekeeping and close it yourself, it just kind of cleans up prior to, might keep a quote open for 6 months, and with it being year end, you may not want it just hanging out there. So I've got things way, hanging out there that I'd just rather not have open anymore, but didn't even have anything on it, so I could go through and cancel all these things. The other thing you want to do is, once you're sure that all of your orders are completed, everything you have in there is the way you want it, you would want to run their sales journal one last time to make sure that it processes all open or all closed orders. So it creates your invoices, it updates your inventory, takes things out of stock, and gets, of course, your AR updated, and hopefully that will be the last time you have to run that. If you wanted to, you could print that same report, this one for the year that shows you what orders you did. It's totally up to you. Of course, there are tons of other reports you could run for year end, by orders, by customers, by whatever. But at least if you had this one for the entire year, you could, again, print that to file. at the time you say you're done. That one's kind of a fast one. Any questions on order management? I know most people are probably looking for the AP, but I'll get there. All right, so after order management, the next one you should do is your inventory. So we go into here. So again, with inventory, like with all the other areas, we want to be sure that we have no batches hanging out there. We want to be sure that everything's gone through. So I'm going to print my batch register, same kind of thing, loading my template. I'm going to do the summary. I want to do, in this case, I'm just running for a bigger period. I've got my balance holder suspended. Say, okay. And it should give me whatever batches are out there. So I need to find out what, I've got a few that are on hold. I've got some transfers, adjustments, receipts. I would want to go to each one of those screens and try to figure out what's going on. Do I need it? Do I not need it? You could, if you're not sure, you could also change your period to post to a future period. It just takes some investigation to figure out whether you need it or not. If they came from, like with receipts, it may have come from purchasing and you didn't realize it hadn't been done yet. So again, identifying whether you need it or not and releasing it or not releasing it, removing it, and so on. You want to make sure that everything is posted all the way through that it's supposed to be. You also want to, once you're sure everything has been posted and released, you would want to run your trial balance. Now the thing about the inventory trial balance, this is what you should use to tie to your GL inventory, and again, it should be done on a monthly basis. You really don't want to let anything get out of control between your GL and your module, and that holds true for all the modules. A lot of times people will post journal entries in the GL, which will throw the modules off. So when you go to balance, you're trying to figure out, why am I off? So on a monthly basis, if you run your report, you come up with the value, you know what your GL account numbers are, you know, you should go to the end, you could say, okay, I've got $100,000, then I would go into the GL and run that my GL account number and tick and tie. And if they're off, you have to investigate why, and it's so much easier to do this on a monthly basis than to try to figure out, okay, what happened all year long. You know, tricks of the trade, of course, would be look for anything in the general ledger, like look for journal entries that may have been posted. You could run a detailed GL report looking for where the module is equal to GL or not equal to, you know, inventory or purchasing or whatever. That kind of identifies where other things may have hit that should not have, and try to figure out, okay, what can I do to resolve this? And I'll repeat that probably more than once. Okay, so after you tick and tie and you're sure that that's okay, you also want to, for your records, again, printing either to paper, more than likely print to file, would be your item list that says, okay, what items do I have? I want to print also my valuation report and my, so if I print my items and my sales by item. These are just, so at the time you say, you know, you're closed, you just got it. So for the auditors and so on, you can say, okay, this is what it was at the time I closed. And it just shows, you know, how much was on hand and your average and, you know, what's the balance. All righty. Sales by item is another good one. It just kind of shows, you know, how the sales are going. The print previews. So as you can see, if you just if they go out, they've got a lot of good information on it. So if you print a file, you know, easy enough to come back to and just say, okay, it's for the audit. All right, so that is inventory. Any questions on inventory? Okay, looks like I'm going to move forward. All right, so after inventory comes time and expense. So that's in projects. Now within projects, I would run the time card report looking for any timesheets that are not posted. So if you have timesheets that are completed but they haven't been posted yet, maybe they haven't been approved, you have people who may have done it in process and then just never came back and completed them, you want to be sure that all time cards are processed. If you had, let's say somebody started a time card and then it wasn't needed, you're better off just deleting it. So what I have is unposted time here as my template. And all I said was, give me every time card with the status of that is not equal to posted and not equal to X, which means that it was a correction. What that will give me is a report showing the time cards. And if I have an in process, what I would then do is go into the time card entry screen, pull open that time card, and see, okay, did they start it with, let's say it was how you have week ending dates and they only have one day. It may have, they started it and they just didn't do complete because it really had no time on it. You could remove it if you want. If it's completed, it might be a matter of making the manager go and approve it so that you can post it. If it was in process and someone just forgot to make it completed. So again, investigating the reports going through, so like here's an in process, I've got 16 hours that hasn't gone through. So that reflects on, okay, if I have time that's in here, it's affecting my projects, it might be affecting my billing. So you need to investigate and find out what's going on, for each one. And as I said, if you need to clean it up, let's say this wasn't needed or the 8 hours shouldn't have gone in because it came in a different way. Maybe it was a consultant who actually turned in an invoice that you did through AP instead. So this is one report I would use. Another thing that you could use instead of running the report, that's for like the whole year, you could do the actual time card status, which would be this, and it just for the, that year. So if I said, okay, and I did this 12/31, oops, come here, 1999, and my entire company, it shows me what's missing, what's, in this case, everybody's missing. But you can quickly view whether your time cards are missing or in process or whatever for just a time frame. So you do this for every month. That's another way of doing it. It also shows, who the supervisor is or the approver and so on. Okay, and also, so once you've posted everything and you're sure that all your time cards are okay, you should definitely print your labor distribution report, which shows where did everything go, how was the labor distributed for the year. So if I did this for 1999, and I do a print preview, again, I can export this out. This one doesn't have time and expense, so I can't show you. But you would want to export it. Another one that you would want to do is, this one will do your current and your year-to-date totals. The employee utilization report, if you have the utilization set up, it's a flex column report in Project Controller. You would want to print it prior to closing, because as soon as you close, you have to, it disappears. So this is one that you really want to be sure that you run, just so it shows the utilization, because it clears out the tables and starts fresh when you close the year. I've also forgot to mention, I just realized. Okay. Payroll you would close in the GL, and prior to any closing, please be sure you have a backup. A lot of times, if you just have someone run a quick SQL backup prior to pushing the button to close, you can do it first thing in the morning before people start working, because you never know if somebody's working late, especially at year end when everybody seems to work late. Payroll you would need to close in the GL. Your purchasing does not close by itself. It doesn't actually have a closing. It's closed when AP is closed. Your order management does not close by itself. It actually closes when AR closes. With inventory, you would actually go into the GL, and it's a module that you would close. So for each one of these, like I said, just be sure you have a backup. And now with time and expense, it doesn't really have an actual, it goes with project controller. Okay, any questions on time and expense? Okay, all right, I'm going to move forward then. Flex billings. Flex billings is the next. First thing I would do, if you use Allocator, is you want to be sure, with Project Controller and your projects, I should say anything with projects, first thing you want to do is I want to run what's called the financial transaction transfer to be sure that everything from all the other modules have come in, so that when you allocate, it's got all of the information to allocate. So you can just do this per period. You can do it for one module. You can do it for all modules. You can go through each period, just do a begin processing. If I go ahead and run this, it literally goes through and just checks and makes sure, did I get everything I'm supposed to have? As you can see, I'm getting zeros. That just says, okay, there's no GL. That means I already transferred this. Majority of the project people, I have it set up that it will do it automatically for you, which is part of your project controller setup. As you can see down here, it shows that I had 29 subcontracts that came in. I had my commitments off of those, my PJ commitments off of the purchasing came in, and then I had, but nothing was rejected and so on. So all of that is good. Oh, so anyway, so you want to make sure you run that, so that then what I would do is, after I'm sure that I've ran it, I would go into the allocator module. And the thing about allocations is you need to be sure that nothing got posted backward, that you closed and then somebody posted to a prior fiscal period, which again in Project Controller is something you can set up to allow posting to prior fiscals. If you have it, see, in this case, I do not. It's saying I can't post to a prior. So I may get an issue with trying to release it. But if this was selected, it would allow me to go backwards. So all I'm saying is that you may want to run your allocator in preliminary mode for each month to be sure that nothing was missed. And if a preliminary comes up with something, then you can try to figure out, okay, what do I want to do with that? If it posts, then I can try to figure out, do I need to do a project charge to move things around? It's just a good idea to try, just to make sure you grab everything you need in Project Controller. So after that, after you're sure that you've allocated everything you need, the other thing is whether you have it set up in your Flex Billings to do an automatic load. It should, but in Flex Billings you can also run your Billings transaction load, which just means go out and look and see if there's anything that wasn't brought over, just to be sure that I'm billing everything I need to. Once you run this process, so you've allocated, you've posted everything, you've done your time, and your expense, just remembered, expense reports is another one. Make sure that all your expense reports are in there, not just time, within time and expense. You would go through, you would run this, and then the other thing you should do would be to look at your unbilled report. Make sure what's on this unbilled detail report is truly unbilled, and that you plan on billing it in the future. So in this case, I do have a lot of things, but it could be some of these things are on like an in-process invoice. So you want to go through these reports and, again, clean up after yourself. Make sure everything is to go into the new year. I don't have a lot of this left over. And if you did this on a monthly or you do this on a monthly basis, it's not so daunting at year end. So again, review the report, see what's out here. If there are things that shouldn't be out here, maybe you could bring them onto an invoice and write them down and write them off and make them go away so you don't have to worry about them next year. So this report. You also should run the invoice in process, making sure that all your invoices have been released. There's not sitting on hold unless you want them to. There might be things that, you're waiting to get approvals or whatever. So in this case, I only have one, and it says it's completed, but it's waiting for somebody to approve it. So get after that person to approve it so that I can post it, so I can print it, so I can get the revenue. So after you're sure that your invoicing process is good, your unbilled is good, you've brought over everything, the last thing you need to do or should do would be just be sure that your, wrong one, that your posting, where'd you go? Oh, that was right. I was in the wrong screen. That in the screen that you've actually gone through and you've posted all of your memos as well as all your invoices. So what I mean by that is down here you usually see the posting period and you just do begin. But if you need to also be sure that if you've done reversals and flex billings, that you come up here and do, 1999. Yeah, I know that. So you want to be sure that, for the year that all your reversals have gone through. And that they're not just hanging out there in limbo. And of course, once you do this and you run your posting, you could try running it per period, just to be sure that again nothing's hanging out there waiting that was on the in process and said, okay, I'm completed, but I haven't posted yet. And then once that is run, what you may want to retain, your unbilled report maybe. Also be sure that once you close this, that when you do move into the next year, that you're very careful when you go to post your invoices because you want to be sure that they get into the correct period. So when you get into that screen, just don't always just, go with whatever it defaults to. Be sure that you just double check. You don't want to have invoices in the wrong year and then have to fix them. That is not much fun. Okay. Are there any questions on flex billing? Okay, I'm going to move forward then. Okay, so after your flex billings, it says move to your accounts receivable. So in accounts receivable, as with all these other modules, you want to be sure that you run your period sensitive aging. And this period sensitive, you want to tie to the general ledger. Let me back up 1 second. Before you do that, let's run our register, our batch register, and make sure that there's nothing on hold. Again, you make sure that all your batches have been posted, all your batches have been released, if there's anything in process. So if I load my template here, do my select, same thing, suspended, hold, or balanced. I do my print preview. Let me change my report periods. Oops. Okay, well, don't have any, so that's good. If I had any batches, I would go through, identify. I'm going to take this off just so I can give a list. One of the things that's nice about the screen, about these reports, is that as well as giving you what the status is, so if I had a hold or suspended or something, it's going to also show me what period, and it's also going to show me what screen it came from. I can, in most cases, the 010, as this would be like an invoice entry screen, and an 08030 to me means that it's a payment batch. And how I know that is if you go into the module, it's usually these input screens is where things get suspended. You may have in the AR, you may have something from like an inquiry reversal, but majority of the time it's going to be these three screens. So if I open that up, at the top of the screen is the screen number. So as I can see down here, see 08010, I know that was entered within this screen. The 08030 should be payments. So that would be like that one. So if I come back over here, I go into payment apps. It might even be payment entry. Yeah. See, 08030 is the payment entry screen. So you can identify based on that as to what do I need to do. Open the batch. Again, investigate. Do I need this? Was it entered twice? Did somebody start something and then they didn't mean to? I started doing a deposit and I realized I didn't have all the information, and then I came back and didn't realize I'd already started it, and I did it again. This is, one way of helping you identify what's going on. So that report should be run. Once you're sure you have everything cleaned up from there, it also could be that, if it's a balanced, you could do a release now, or you can come into, your release batches. And again, this all goes to all the modules that they're going to have release batch area. They're going to have, you can come in here if there are things listed, you can select them, you can begin processing. If anything is suspended, you may need our assistance or your support company's assistance. Let's see, so now I'm sure that I've got everything. I've posted everything. I'm sure that I want to go forward. Now what I would do is, this is the period sensitive AR. This is what you want to tie your balance to the GL. Just as I said before, in the general ledger, you want to look at the trial balance report, confirm that it balances to the balance on this aging. If it doesn't, I would look for anybody who's done any journal entries is usually the first culprit. You want to do where anything, is not AR that posted into the AR accounts, and try to figure out why you're off. The other one you can run, this is your period sensitive aged AR. The other report that you can run that should always tie to each other is going to be the customer period trial balance. I like the period one, because it also shows you the ins and outs. So if I wanted to run it for an entire year, it's going to show me all of the documentation. Again, the ins and outs, my debit memos, my payments, and so on. So that number should tie to the other number. This one has should tie to your period sensitive for the exact same period. Just when there was a higher dollar amount. No, I was right. 118. So the minus 118, and that's what you should have in the GL as well. As I've said prior to this, again, try to do this on a monthly basis. It's much easier if you approach it on a monthly basis than a yearly basis or a quarterly basis. It's just that way you can easily fix something prior to it getting out of hand. Once you're sure that all of those are done, you want to print out the period sensitive, your customer trial balance. You could do sales analysis. by your customer. You may also want to print your customer history report, which just kind of shows what happened during the year, how many invoices, debit memos, credit memos, payments. One thing that you may want to do, you don't have to do, is run the integrity check, which kind of goes through and verifies balances for you. This may be a long process, so it wouldn't be something I'd say, oh, I feel like running this, and then your computer gets tied up running it for a while. It might be something you want to run at the end of the night, or, before you go home at night, leave it open and just let it run. That is true for a lot of these reports. As you can see, I've got a lot of sales, and it just shows kind of at a summary level per period what's going on. That's why it's a nice report. The integrity check, as I was saying, if your balances don't seem to be right, you can actually go through and just run to verify them. And then once you verify them, you could actually check it to have it corrected. I have ran these, and as I said, just run them. I like running it at night. It should give you a log file that will tell you what it found, and then we can go from there as to whether it's okay. It's not a requirement, but you may want to do it. And then, of course, once you're sure everything is good, to actually close the period, you would go into the general ledger, and you want to close for the year. There is something new within the GL that you can set it up that people are not allowed to post a prior fiscal, or if you own something called hard close, you may need to adjust your periods that you're allowed to post. So if you do close and then something else comes in, you are able to post to prior periods, but you may have to do, like I said, if you have hard close, you may have to adjust that. If you have this other one, you may have to uncheck that you're allowed to post to prior fiscal. But out of the box, standardly, it's a soft close. So you can always post back if need be. Okay, and of course, always back up your database before you close, or be sure that you have a backup, just in case. Okay, any questions on accounts receivable? All right, I'm going to move forward. Okay, accounts payable is the next one that you should close. It's payroll, not accounts payable. Let's try that again. Accounts payable. So as with all the other ones, I'm going to go through. I want to be sure. Now in AP, they actually give you this unreleased AP batch report. You could either run that. Again, I personally do like running the batch register report just because it's in summary, and it does the exact same thing with showing me the what screens that they came from when things are off. So if I didn't set up a template. So if I go back to here, and it's showing me my batches. It shows me what screens they came in. I personally know off the top of my head that 03010 is a voucher entry screen. 03620 is a check batch. You may also have like 0340, which means a manual check. If you're unsure, so you're looking at the report, you know you have suspended, as I said before, you can always open up the screen and look at the top and say, okay, 03030, I know that's manual check. I think I said the void check must be 03040, there you go. So all of the input screens, this would be what would show on this report. So if you do find something, go through the list, try to identify, do I need it, do I not need it? You know, if it was in process but then it was started again, you may just want to purge it or delete it. So you have to open it up in that screen and then delete it. So once you're sure that you've got all of your batches posted, say I've got a lot of holds here, you know, and go through here and say, do I want it or don't I want it? You know, is it needed? If it is, and I'm going to want to go through and post, I may even want to change the period to posting. So decisions to be made when it comes to that. And this should probably be done each month, but as a year-end thing, should also be done. Once you do that, and you're sure all your batches are posted, you want to be sure that you run the period sensitive, your trial balance, as well as your aged AP. This period sensitive should be tied to the GL accounts payable account. And when you run it, the trial balance should also tie to the period sensitive aged AP. So if I ran to the end, I show I've got 5,003,11. If I run the other report, is that sensitive, right? Yeah, I want to run my trial balance. It should tie to each other, as well as to the general ledger. 5311902. So that's all good. So then you go to the general ledger and make sure it ties to that. Again, if you're off, I always say look for journal entries, because that usually is the reason why things are messed up, or things have not been posted even in the general ledger. That's another one, that if they're just sitting there waiting to be posted, you might be off. I would print this out and retain it. I would print the trial balance as well as the aging to file and save it. Running the integrity check, you can, again, it can help you rebuild things or just help you verify that everything is good. Again, it usually takes a while to run, so I would run this at night. I would not run it during the day. And if for some reason it finds things, you may want to run through the rebuild. And that's it as far as just that part of it. You also, for the year end, for your 1099s, I want to do that last, but you may need to use this to rebuild your 1099 history. I have had clients that have accidentally closed the year more than once, and when that happened, we had to go back and rebuild. Oh, I've got an AR question. Okay, the question is, in AR, if we incorrectly input AR as unbilled, how can we show correctly as billed? That would be, I would think, now you're talking about, if you're talking about GL account numbers, there are specific things we should look for when we're running the AP integrity check. Okay, the first one on the billed, I would say billed versus unbilled. I mean, if you're talking about a general ledger account number, so if you entered something into an unbilled account and it really should be billed, you may have to use a journal entry to reclass it from unbilled into billed. And if you're talking with projects, it may be a little more complicated than that. So if you did an accounts receivable, you did an invoice and you posted it instead of to the AR account, it posted to an unbilled AR account, you may have to do a reclass. It may be a little more complicated than just, I guess it really depends if you're using flex billings. Eric, let me know if I answered your question. And then as far as the integrity check, I was asked, are there specific things that we should look for when we're running the AP integrity check? If you're running just verify, literally it will go through and it's just going to be a long, long list of this is what I came up with, and the log file would also show you, that all the balance in the AP is correct or that it's not correct, and if it's not correct, then we have to figure out, okay, what needs to be corrected. So let's say the AP balance is showing wrong in the history report that really have nothing open, but for some reason it's showing that there was a balance. It may be a matter of having to rerun the integrity check so that it fixes it, so it corrects its balance. It may be in some cases we have to actually fix it within SQL Server or something. So really what it identifies would be in that log file you want to review and see if it finds any oddities. Okay, so as far as going back to Eric's question, he said, so for the unbilled AR to the AR, they could make the journal entry. Yes, because truly at that point, I would expect your accounts receivable is going to be off, because within your aging, you should have that your accounts receivable dollar amount is X dollar amount, but if the invoice didn't go to AR, then it's going to be off by that invoice. So yes, that would be the correct, and again, making sure that your aging ties to the general ledger dollar amount. So if you're off by that one entry, you would want to do a journal entry to move it into billed AR to the actual AR balance and make sure that they still tie. Okay, that answered Eric's question. Okay, so the accounts receivable, if you did a journal entry, like I said, your biggest thing is making sure that your aging ties to the general ledger. With the integrity check on any of them, the log file that comes out that prints with it when it will say it's done, and it would show you the log file, and it would say, okay, which ones are off? Like, is my document balances, or is are all my batches okay? Are my vendor balances truly okay? So it should give me a log file showing that everything truly is okay, or that they don't, there's an error, or not that there's an error, but that they don't balance. And then on the rebuild, as I said, if you accidentally close your 1099 year too many times, you may need to rerun that for the year so that it reputs, and it's going to base it on anything that has a box. So what I mean by that is when you're doing your vouchers, if somebody is set up as 1099 and you're doing a voucher and you said they had a box 7 or box 1 or box 14, it will recalculate and put those numbers back in there. Now, if you've gone in and manually adjusted them afterwards, which I'm going to show you how to do, it would not include those. It's only going to include what it sees in the database. It literally is just going to recalculate. So it's just a warning. You don't want to run this unless you're sure that it really needs to be done. All righty. So for your 1099s, again, if you're, I'm going to come back to that. For 1099s, you definitely are you're going to close your AP before you really do your 1099s. So I'm going to move on to closing all the other ones, and then I'm going to come back to what do you do for your 1099s. So after AP, you've done your AP, you've closed all your batches, you're sure that AP balances. The next thing you should do would be in Cash Manager. If you use Cash Manager, you would want to make sure that the same thing like with all of them, I want to be sure that all my batches have posted. I want to be sure that I don't have anything on hold. I want to post everything that's supposed to happen to complete my December bank recon. I'm going to load my template, do the same as I've been doing, my report, make sure nothing is hanging out there. The reason why I keep putting in 01-1999 is because it's a very old demo database. You personally typically would just run for the current year, though you may want to run for more. I mean, if there's anything stuck out there that you've never addressed, it might be nice to have it addressed. So it looks like there's nothing on hold or suspended within Cash Manager, so that's good. You could print your cash transactions. Of course, every month I would expect that you have your bank recons all the way out there. You could run your check register for the entire year. What's nice about the check register is it also shows you your deposits, or sorry, your check and deposit, this report, check and deposit reconciliation. That's a report that you may want to spit out for the year. It shows you what's open, what's closed, when things cleared. I can just show it to you for one. These would be things you'd want to retain. This is another one that, again, you want to back up your database. Make sure that everything, so if I just run this from O1, come on. Okay. Wasn't letting me click it. It would show you the cleared amount. It would show you the dollar amount. I don't understand why it wouldn't let me do that, but so that's a report you could print. As I said, as usual, you always want to make sure your bank recon is done before you close for the year, but it's a soft close. You should be able to go back and actually close it. Cash manager is kind of a small one, except for making sure your bank recon balances. Okay, after cash manager, they say you should go into projects. And to close project controller, again, you should really do this on a monthly basis. You should not leave it open forever and not actually close it. What happens during the close process is that there's a ton of tables in the back end that it updates as far as, you know, the actual summaries and by count categories and by projects and by task and so on. So it's really, 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 really a good idea to actually close it on a monthly basis. First thing you want to try to do is you want to look for any suspended transactions, and that's where that financial transaction transfer, it should go through without suspending anything, but sometimes things don't go through all the way. So if I just print the report, it will show me if anything got hung up, and it's a matter of investigating and try to figure out why it didn't, again, why it didn't come over into Project Controller like it should have. So for each one of these, if I just run it, it's going to go through. It's going to show me what may have been rejected. But if I'm doing it on a monthly basis, it shouldn't matter. It should just identify for everything. As you can see, everything seems to be going through okay. Another report would be your budget versus actuals and your project cost analysis. These are just for retaining. You know, if you're looking at your projects again on a monthly basis, you know, you kind of know where you stand, but you might want to print it for the year just to put that, file them away. You may want to print out your revenue and billing status report, your project profitability. Waiting for this to finish so I can move forward. Okay, sorry. I thought this only had one or two things. Once you're sure that everything is closed, you also want to print, you want to be sure that you don't close it, especially with the fact that right now in the setup that we have in this system is that it won't allow you to post to prior fiscal or prior periods. So I want to be sure that everything else that's going to integrate into here, so that would be my payroll, that would be my time and my expenses, my AP, my AR, you know, all of these things that are supposed to be done, they're done first before I go in and say, okay, project controller is done. Although you could change the setup to allow posting, just be sure that everything else is closed first. To actually close it, it is not within the general ledger. It is right here, but definitely be sure that you have a backup, you know, SQL Server, run a backup before you close it. The nice thing, the only place, the only one you can do this with is with Project Controller. You can change it back. The only caveat I say to this is be sure no one is posting. That if you need to correct something and you need to go back to a prior year after you've closed it, be sure that you are the only one working in the system and somebody's not releasing something, because if something is related to Project Controller and you roll it back and then it may get into the wrong period and then you're trying to figure out what you're doing. So if you decide, after that you close for the year and I need to go back, you literally are allowed, if you have access rights, to just change it. That's all I have to do. $12.19.99. I saved that At that point in time, I am back to that fiscal period. If I roll it back and I save this and I post something, be sure you rerun your allocator, you rerun your FTT, you rerun your reports. You just want to make sure that everything is where it belongs before you close it again. And I do say close it again. Do not just switch it back here, because what happens during the close, when I push that button, let's see now, when I go into here and I click that, it, as I said, goes through the back end and it updates all of those other tables that are needed for reports. You know, you have a lot of period to date, month to date, project to date, year to date tables that are used that you want to make sure are updated as well. So when you're reviewing them, everything is good across the board. Okay. I think that's it for Project Controller. I did mention, you know, some of the reports, you know, your project cost, your budget versus actual. Some of these reports have to be set up in Flex Column, but your project list, which will show you, you know, what's available. You may want to review your project list and go see if there's things that should be turned off. And what I mean by turned off is, you know, inactivate them so that they don't show up in your lists. You may even want to run a purge before you decide to run a purge. Again, you get a good backup, but you can actually purge projects or purge detail. It's not one of those willy-nilly kind of purges. You really want to be careful when you do it. But even if you just run a project list that just shows you, you know, what's open at this time, and then you can go through and say, okay, I do not need this many active. You know, I could go through and do a whole bunch of them at once and just say, okay, I really only want, you know, certain ones open. You can either set them in the project controller to be inactive or to be purged. So if I pulled up a project here, I can say, you know, I want to purge it, I want to delete it, you know, delete it. You may want to delete it if it was never used. Or you could just say it's inactive. I really just don't want anybody to be able to post to it. So that's, again, housekeeping for year end. Okay. That should be project controller. So the next one would be general ledger. So with general ledger, again, as with everything else, you want to be sure that everything's been posted. So you may want to run your GL transaction report to make sure that everything has been posted within the GL for the entire year. We've also found with SL 2011 with Quick Query, you could look for batches that are like on hold or whatever, like Allocator doesn't have a batch control area that I can actually see the batches were on hold versus posted. So I know I've created reports for people, and I think with the Quick Query on batches, you can actually see now if batches are not equal to P or or U for unposted and posted. Here I've got a bunch that are sitting with an unposted status, which means they're U. And in all other cases, I'm usually looking for B's, H's, or S's, which means their balance hold is suspended. So again, review this report. The Quick Query I was talking about is under here, under financial, under general ledger batches. And if I looked for the status, and let's just add my filter to, instead of batch number, I want status, and I can say not is not P. And want to do my isn't. So it's not P, so it's going to give me, see all these holds, and then tells me what batch they're in. You can sort by the status. So you can say, okay, I don't compare about completed. This could also be spit out to Excel, so you could review it. But see, I have a bunch of holds. So if I go all the way through, I don't care about my voids, but maybe I've got some unposted here, but I've got a bunch of holds. If I had S's, they would be, of course, in between those two. So this is a nice, quick, easy way. As I said, I know in the past there sometimes have been issues where things have made it, allocator in particular, over into the GL, but it didn't have a U status, so we didn't know that it wasn't posted. So this could be a quick help. General ledger, let's see. So the batch register, so that's the unposted. Let me go back to GL. You also want to do your batch register, the same as all the other ones. You know, I'm looking for my suspended or balanced or whatever. Try to figure out if I want them or not. For year end, you may want to run, you're going to run your, of course, your trial balance report. Make sure you're in balance. You want to, if you're using FRX or MR, make sure your report's tied to your trial balance. You may want to print your GL detail out to a file. In some cases, they're quite large, so you may not. That can always be run at any time. When you close your GL, when you're ready and you're sure everything is done and you've posted everything, as I keep saying, it's not a hard close. It can be considered hard close, but usually you can go back and post. It may take a matter of just changing a setting in the hard close or the period to post, or not the period to post, or the GL setup screen that will allow you to post back to that period. You can close and move forward. The reason why I say that is I do know of clients who've actually left them open for months on end waiting for the auditors to come through. It's not necessary, but because you can back post, it is allowable. What I was talking about is, what's fiscal here, posting. See, I've got allow posting to close periods, or I can say do not allow. So if I clicked that, then it wouldn't let me go backward. Versus the hard close software you can buy, you can actually say you're allowed to post one period forward, one period backward, that kind of thing. So before you close, be sure you've printed everything, you balanced everything, all of your different GL accounts. You want to run a backup of the database before you actually close. And I wanted to point out here. The other thing, as far as housekeeping goes, you could run an integrity check again in the GL, like with all the other ones. It'll go through and just be sure that everything ticks and ties across and give you a log of what may or may not happen. When you close your year, you can get rid of old data if you want, old detail. The other thing you may want to do is when you close your year is you want to run the trial balance, like you're ready to close, you run the trial balance at 12/31. Once you close, you run your trial balance for January or for period 1. The biggest thing is, it's been a long time since we've had issues with this, but you just want to make sure they tie. Your balance sheet equals your balance sheet. Majority, I can say it's been a few years since we've had issues with it, but it's always a good idea just to show that, okay, I did a print preview, I already talked about the fact that it's a soft close. The integrity check, as I said, you can go through it. If you do have any issues with the integrity check, you can, again, request help to update things. Majority of the time, it's just the balances didn't get updated correctly because something got suspended or in the back end. But it's been a while since I've seen anything like that happen. Okay, so the closing, as I said, these are the only modules that you would actually go in here to close. So you would want to do your payroll would close within the GL, your cash manager is in the general ledger, your inventory, AR, purchasing does not, it goes with AP. So that's why they're beside each other. So when you close one, it closes the other. And of course, your general ledger. And if you checked this box, what it will do is it will delete the detail from that module based on the setup you have in your GL setup screen. So if you say you want to retain all of your detail for 7 years, it would go through and say, okay, anything prior to 7 years, I'm going to get rid of. So some companies never run this, and their databases have gotten enormous. And at that point, I do suggest that they, you could do a backup, you could save it offline, zip it somehow so that you can remove some of the details so that it's not so large, so it doesn't take so long to do some of your queries or to run your reports. It's, again, you're at year end, so it might be something you want to consider. Okay. Okay. Any questions on GL? I should say anything prior, because after this, I'm going to move on to 1099s. Okay, I don't see any questions. All right, 1099s. Let's see. So for 1099s, the best way to start, in my opinion, would be to print preview the 1099 report. Because what this will do, it's going to give you a list of what you have set up already in SL. It's going to say, these are all the people that within vendor maintenance I've set up that they are, yes, 1099 vendors. And 1 second, I want to switch companies. And I want to actually show. I'm going to go into a different database. So I would do the 1099 print preview. It's going to show me who's been set up with the 1099 yes. It should show me whether they have their federal ID number in there, whether they have an additional name, different name going by. So if I do my 1099 print preview, I can open up. Okay, so right now I've got, here are a few of them. This one has one, that one doesn't. So that's kind of a good starting point. So right now, first thing I've got to do for like the second one is I need to go and ask, where's your 1099 information? Where is your W-9? Maybe it came in, somebody just didn't update it. Maybe it was never requested, but you knew they should have been, so you went ahead and set them up. The other thing is you want to make sure that they have a default box. So let's say you knew they should have been, you never set them up with a box, so when you entered all their vouchers, none of the dollar amounts were entered into here, yet you've been paying them all year. So this is a good starting point to give you a base. So like if I went and look at VTO 110, shrink that. So if I go into vendor maintenance, I've got yes. If I look at my documents, I've been paying them. So I know for a fact, okay, now I need to figure out how much money should be the box, shouldn't be in the box, and so on. So my next step would be, now that I know that they're on here, I print it out, I circle, all right, I've got to identify my W-9s, get that going. I need to now figure out what should my dollar amount be. There are a couple different reports you could use that may help identify it. You could run the vendor trial balance. You could run the vendor history. I did like my vendor history for just that one. That's going to give me totals of how many vouchers were done and how many payments had been done. I'm going to go through here. If I go down to my VTO 100 for 1999, you know, I've got $476,000. Okay, but that still doesn't identify exactly where is it posted. So I've got my totals. This is one way. It gives me a roll up. If you ran your AP transactions, I'm really looking for what vouchers were posted this year and then where were they posted, because if they went to something that's considered, you know, a 1099, we only do 1099 miscellaneous, so was it rent, was it royalty, you know, was it, well, if I go through all the boxes, so your rent, your royalty, was it prizes, you know, and I have to know those GL account numbers. So I may want to run a report with my AP transactions that says, okay, I'm going to look for anybody who was posted to the AP account that corresponds with consulting, or my AP account that corresponds with my legal. So I could do a selection statement based on the AP transaction. Oops. AP Tran account, you know, I can do so it's going to give me like all of my expenses. Oh, great. I've got to look at the right periods. Must not have gone to a 5. Oh, didn't keep it. AP Tran dot. Sorry, I must have picked a bad number. Begins with. There we go. So here it's going to show me everything that was posted. This is by batch. I could even go so far as to select per vendor. Or I get it this far, I could export it out and sort it and do whatever I want with it. Say I've got ADs, I've got vouchers. If it was posted to a box, it would show under this column right there. So in this case, everything I'm looking at that went to the 6s, I had no boxes. And we know for this VTO 100 person, no box was used. So you could use this to come up with a dollar amount that says, okay, fine, it went to the GL account number. I've got my dollar amount. I know that I tie. I made sure, I also made sure that all the checks had gone through, that I really paid everything that I posted this year. Because of course 1099s are based on what was paid, not what invoices were posted, but what payments actually went out the door. So you may want to do, okay, I've got that. I may want to do, instead of AP Tran account, I could do like based on the vendor ID, Vend ID. I'm getting there. Vendor ID, and I could do my same thing with VTO 100. And that's going to give me everything that occurred for them during the year. I've got all my vouchers. I've got all my checks. So I can kind of look and say, okay, I agree that my dollar amount should be, you know, that much money, the 429er. He's got some credits here. So I'd really want to confirm my dollar amount before I go in and change it. Once you're sure of what it should be, and you compare it with the GL and make sure that, okay, find my GL, I show that this is what I posted, you can actually go into it. First thing you have to do is, and if you have the right, you turn on initialize mode. I have to go turn it back on. I go into vendor maintenance. I pull up my VTO 100. I go to 1099. If you do not have the right to use initialize mode, this will be gray. But because I have the right to do initialize mode, I can actually go in here and update this. Now, see, that shows $25,000. So my dollar amount should have been the $429,770. That's literally all I'm going to do. So if I save that, I'm going to close that, and I come back to this 1099 preview, it should now show the new dollar amount. There you go. Okay. The other thing you can do is that report shows everybody, but there are some people in there that were zeros. So maybe I don't want to see those. So one of the tricks that I do is I literally print this form. Although it has no print preview, you can print the file. You can print this over and over and over and over and over again. So I just print to an XPS to a file. I just say print, and a little window is going to pop up, and I say, where am I going to print it? And I'm going to call this 1099 test, 1099 test, and I say save, and yes. So it's done. So now if I come back over here to my temp file, my 1099 test, I can literally see what's going to print. So this is one way of helping you versus, again, not wasting paper. I printed the file, I looked at it, okay, there's my 429, that looks good. You know, this is what's going to come out. You know, we got it down at the bottom. Okay, right now, really only 2 are printing. So that's another trick that I do. Okay, I think I got... Oh, okay. Sorry, I just heard that you're having trouble hearing me. Are you hearing any better? Is that correct? Please just say yes or no, or... Okay, I moved my speaker. Sorry, I apologize. Okay, so as you can see, the 1099 is there. So that's one, again, since you can't do a print preview on the screen, you can at least print to file, which you can then review. You can print them over and over and over again. As we know, the 1099s are due by 1/31 to all of your vendors, 2/28 to the IRS. This is paper form. If you send out, let's say you send out a 1099, or you don't send out a 1099, somebody gets in contact with you. If you need to go in and create one for just one person prior to filing, you can actually you can create a template within the 1099 forms with a select statement that just says, hey, I'm going to load this template. I just want to select one vendor to print. So you would just look for the vs1099info.vendor_ID equals. So again, in this case, I'm saying I just want to do my good old VTO 100 guy. I put in that 429, and let's say he got back to me and said, no, that's not right. You know, I disagree with you. One of those vouchers was from a prior year or whatever. You know, you could come in here and just print the one form prior to actually uploading or filing with the IRS and do the correction. Okay, so that goes through kind of how do you look through things, you know, how would you reconcile the W-9s, consulting legal. Also, I wanted to mention that with 1099s, you can do, if you have multiple companies within one database, it will print all of the multi-companies sorted on the federal ID, then the vendor ID. So you can do them all at once. I wanted to mention that the box limits, if anything for box 1, 3, 6, 7, or 10, anything over $600 will print. For boxes 2 and 8, which are for royalties, and number 8 is payments in lieu of interest, it's anything over $10. For box 4, 5, 13, and 14, it's anything over 0. All right, and I think the last thing I wanted to show you before I just kind of do a walkthrough review through the slides is if you do the electronic filing, you will need to set up the screen, but I also needed to mention this. One thing that always happens before you go and try to do your 1099s, or you try to do 2014 starts and you're not ready to do your 1099s, you may get a warning that says you can't do checks yet and you're trying to figure out why. It's usually because of this screen. Right now, I'm betting most people have it set that 2012 is their current year and 2013 is their next year. So usually when you're done with the year, the other thing you need to do is just run through this and what's called purge your oldest year. So if I said I wanted to purge my oldest year, this would run through, and this would make this 2000 and this 2001, in my case. If you accidentally click it twice, it will roll it 2 years forward. If that happens, stop immediately and contact us. Because what we will have to do is do a SQL script in order to roll everything back to fix your years within your vendor tables and your AP setups and all of that, and then we would run that integrity to rebuild the balances. So you want to be really careful when you do this. You only want to click it once. Then once it's rolled forward, then you should be, current year is 2013, next year is 2014, and that will also allow you to cut checks for next year. So just a little caveat that you need to remember. I'm going to close that. Okay, now electronic filing. The biggest thing about electronic filing is don't decide to do this late. The IRS wants you to actually go in, and you have to go into their FIRE system, which I'm looking for here, for filing, and you need to set up an account so that you're actually allowed to file with them. It says you can receive authorization to filers can test their electronic filing after November the 12th, which means anytime you want to. If you go to here, you just have to request your ID. So if you need that information, it's also within the year-end updates. As I said, this is the document that comes with the year-end update. You can find it on Customer Source, but I just wanted to bring it out that you have to have that in order to actually upload to them your 1099s. See, your deadline for printed ones are February 28th, but I think with FIRE, I think it's March the 31st. If you decide to upload via a file, a file. So what's going to happen with this, if I go in and I say, now I want to do filing by electronic, I need to, here we go. Generate my 1099 electronic file. The biggest thing about this is filling out the screen with all the correct information. You want to, in most cases, you can include all your 1099 vendors. It's not like you're filing for just one. But if you're doing a correction, you may just have one. But for your first go-around, you want to include all vendors. Also, you want to put the file where you can find it. If you, in this case, they're putting it under Solomon SL. You may want to put it someplace else. The biggest thing is don't make it a long path. You want to put it someplace that's easy to find. I personally like putting things in what's called the import folder. It's not usually that big, but you may have an accounting folder. I'm just saying you don't want to put it like on an accounting, where it's accounting, and then year end, and then 2013, and then files, and blah, blah, blah. And so the path is really, really, really long. Solomon does not like long paths. So this is the reason why I say, okay, if you can pick something short, it shouldn't have that trouble you locating it for when you have to upload it to the IRS, I guess is what I'm getting at. So I'm going to put it under there. It says, well, who is selected at this point? Because I said all, this is who it's selecting. I can do my refresh, but those are the only two that printed before. My payer, this is your information. This is so that when you are uploading it, it knows, what is your federal ID, the name of the company, the address, where can they contact you? Your control code, that's going to be part of your, from the FHIR, it's going to tell you what it should be. Oh, sorry, I take that back. Payer is if somebody's doing it for you. Transmitter is you. You're transmitting it. Here's your TIN. So like if you had somebody else filing it for you, they would be doing that, filling in the payer and agent. So again, you want to put who is the contact person. All of these red fields have to be filled in. And anytime you have questions and you're unsure if you're filling this out, you can always, of course, click on your help. It's just that circle. So if I went to payer, use to modify the file, please, or the agent who's actually working on it. If I go to the transmitter, I went to transmitter, my control code, the unique control code that's given you by the IRS. So you want to be sure that you have that. And then your TIN and all of that. And then how many companies you want to do. In this case, they have 3 selected. You may only have the 1, so it's not a big deal. So at that point, if I wanted to create a file, I'm just going to click begin processing. Now, what am I missing? No. I did. Oh. See, I got yelled at. If I do begin processing, I should be able to go out to that file, that folder, under my Solomon. Did say an event log, but I'm hoping it created. There you go. I'm just going to say open it with Notepad. And this is what it would be uploaded to the IRS system. So again, if you're on 2011, you will need the year-end update to make sure that this file is correct, because what's going to happen is you're going to go out, you're going to upload this to the IRS. Within a few days, the IRS will get back to you whether they approve it or not, whether it was brought into their system correctly. They may just tell you that they have a problem in a certain field, like that the foreign country entity that I know that they fixed. If you have something in the field where they expect it to be blank, they may reject it, and then you'd have to fix it. So just wanted to let you know that. Okay, I think, okay, I talked about the initialize mode. You have to have rights to do it. Printing the paper, printing the file, those are always good. Talked about the FHIR. Oh, a quick query as well on this one. This is where, like, you could say we're box 7. If I go into quick query and I go to financial, accounts payable, go to my, I have already set one set up. And what I did was I just said, I want to do, where's my filter? Box number is equal to 7. Or I could say, and you can see how quick that was. You may want to filter it, like on this one, it's got all of my period to post. Like I'd say, it's all 1999, so that's good. You could even do, if you have a very large database, you may want to do period to post is between, you say, and my period to post, or if I'm just looking at one person, I could say is between and includes, and I could say 01/1/1999 through enter a value 12/1999, and say I didn't find anything. I wonder if I have to do it this way. Sometimes this can be persnickety. 1 through 1999 12. There you go. All right, so you have to put year first. So this would give you a quick and down and dirty. You can easily export that out, so you can sort and select and whatever. I really do like that option. So at that point, say, there's everything that it had in the screen. Just another tool that might be helpful with year-end. The quick query can be very powerful if you know what to select on. And even if you can just get out like some of the information or more than what you need, and then you can whittle it down, of course, in Excel. Everybody knows how to use Excel. Okay. I'm not going to save that. Okay, so I think that kind of covers everything. I want to quickly go through just a synopsis of everything I said. I also have a document that was created a while back of checklists that can help you with some of the modules called year-end checklist. If you would like it, I'd be happy to email it to you. It just sort of goes through, for your, whoops, I want to start at the beginning, not at the end. It'll go through like payroll. All right, this is frustrating me. So if I want to go through my payroll and what's my checklist, my accounts receivable checklist, my AP checklist, the general ledger checklist, what to do for your 1099s, your checklist, do you have everything set up? Also W-2s, and then reconciling your payroll. So it's more the financials than anything. It doesn't have the other modules, but it could be helpful if you want it. So you can let me know if you do. I'd be happy. I'm lsmith@brittonford.com, or you can let me know at the, before you leave, let me know with a show of hands that you want it, and I can get your email address and send it to you. So I just want to do a little recap before we go. As I said, your payroll, you want to print your 941s, your unemployments, your earnings and deductions, and tie everything down. Then the next one is going to be your purchasing. You want to make sure all your batches are posted, your receipt batches are posted, maybe clean up your open purchase orders, close them, make sure your receipts are all done. You do not close that one. It is closed with AP. For order management, you want to cancel quotes if they're not needed. Maybe, verify your sales orders. If there are none that are needed, they could be canceled as well. You want to reprint your sales journal to make sure all your invoices have been posted. For inventory, you want to do, again, make sure all your batches are posted with every single module. Make sure your batches are posted. That quick query would really help, showing you what batches, because it shows all modules. But in each module, if you have different people doing different modules, it can help if each person has their own little, okay, look at this report. You want to reconcile your trial balance for the inventory back to the general ledger. You may want to print, reports to file for your inventory list, your trial balance, your sales by inventory. And then, of course, this one you would close in the GL. Project time and expense. Oh, I forgot to mention the week update.
week updates. I know something. Okay, in time and expense, if you have people doing their timesheets, there is something called week maintenance. And what that is it literally lists every single week ending date with the period it's supposed to post to, the time card week number, which is usually 1 through 6, I think is the most you can have, what fiscal period it's supposed to post to, and what's the salary factor. Every year, I find it easier to just do this in Excel, and I can easily just copy and paste it. Just be sure you have the right format for the dates. So like this one right now, I can tell you right now, is probably not going to like 1. It would like 01. So if I go up to here, well, maybe not. Okay, 1 works. So we'd put in, so I can literally just copy and paste from here. I'm just going to Control C. I open up here. So I just go through and create all of my weeks. I think I'm nuts for putting 2014 in there, but we'll see. Should be able to just copy and paste it into there. Just Control V. Oh, it didn't like something. What didn't you like? No, that's okay. Okay, it was okay. I'm not sure what it didn't like. Maybe the 1. Maybe it's the 1 because I've got. But if you get it set up correctly, you should be able to just do a copy paste. Everything looks to be correct as far as I can tell. And that's usually how I end up updating my week maintenance. But anyway, let's go back to here. Review my time cards, the time card status. You could print the time card report, make sure that everybody's turned in their time cards. Your labor, your utilization, if you have it set up, be sure you print that because it's only per year. And then your labor distribution, again, print to file. It's kind of long, but it's good to have. This will not close on its own. It's closed with project. If we go through to allocator, again, you want to make sure your FTT has already been run within Project Controller. You want to run your allocator, make sure nothing was missed in preliminary. If you find something, you may not want to post it. You may want to move it. You have to decide what you want to do with it. Flex billings, you want to run your billing transaction load. You want to look at your unbilled detail, maybe clean it up. Run your invoice in process, same kind of thing. Make sure that what's out there should be out there. You may want, and then post all your invoices to make sure they get into accounts receivable, and be sure you post to the correct period. Especially with your memos, be sure that you haven't missed any. If we go to accounts receivable, as before, I want to make sure my batch register that everything's been posted. I want to run my period sensitive aging as well as my trial balance, customer trial balance. Make sure those 2 tie as well to the general ledger. So everybody ties across the board. This should be done on a monthly basis, but if it is year end, try to get it tied. Hopefully it does. Some other things you may want to print would be, your customer trial balance for the year, maybe your customer history, which gives the roll-ups, how many sales, how many payments, that kind of thing, and an analysis by customer again. These I would definitely only print to file because they're going to be large. Next is your accounts payable. Again, run your batch register, looking for any unposted. Don't forget the screen IDs. It should be on all of these. I mentioned it, that you can try to identify what screen do I need to go in. You want to print your aging as well as your trial balance, period sensitive ones tied to the AP account in the GL. You're going to, after you're sure you're done, you may want to print out that sensitive aging, print it to file, print your vendor trial balance, print your vendor history. That you will close for the year in the GL. I personally say close this one for sure to make sure people do not cut checks in the wrong period. It's so much easier if they're in the right, if you close it and then just have them be sure if they're back posting, especially if you have cash manager, because you really want to make sure the dates equal the period to post. cash manager, look for unposted. You want to make sure your bank recon is done, though you can go back and do it. I mean, but there is a close. I mean, usually bank recons aren't usually done until mid-month of the next month, but do your bank recon. You may want to print out the check register. You may want to print out the check and deposit recon that shows everything that's gone through, the checks that's cleared. Everything, of course, can be exported out from Crystal into a file. And then, of course, project controller. You want to make sure that everything, the FTT has been run, that nothing's suspended, that everything got over to it. If anything got rejected, we have to try to figure out why so we can get it over there the way it's supposed to be. You know, print out, again, monthly basis, you should be doing this, but even for the year, you want to do your budgets versus actual, you know, my cost analysis, my revenues, you know, was the profitability. You may want to run your project list and inactivate projects that are no longer being used. You know, you only needed them beginning of last year or something, just to clean up your list, housekeeping. You may want to purge transactions. As I always say, please make a backup before you do any purges. I did have a client once that did a purge and didn't realize it, and all of her time card detail was deleted. Luckily, they had a backup that we could look at because she had to go back to like prior, like 7 years ago and look at individual employees' time cards. So we were able to help her by having that backup. So it's a really good idea. Let's see, I'm almost there. All right, and then of course the general ledger, last but not least, same thing, make sure everything's been posted from everywhere, from all the other modules. You want to make sure you can run the unposted format. You could look at that quick query on the batches, make sure everything's gone through. You know, when you're done, you definitely want to do your trial balance. You want to tie them into your MR or FRX reports. You could run your GL detail. I would definitely print that one to file because it could be a very large report if you're doing all 12 periods as a backup. All right, and we talked about the 1099s. You want to be sure you purge your last year and make sure your current year is 2013. You can do the 1099 print preview. You can always print to paper now, or to a file so you can look at it. The XPS comes with Solomon, so that's an easy one if you don't have a file, print to file thing. You want to review your AP transactions and tie them all in. Maybe just look at how many checks were printed. I mean, there's a lot of different formats you can do for your selection. Do it by vendor, spit it to Excel, and so on. Reports to keep, you know, your vendor history, again, your AP transactions. You want to make sure that everything ties across the board for those 1099s. And I think, and I talked about electronic filing, making sure that you fill it out correctly so that when you run it, again, it just creates a file that is then uploaded. So it's a matter of IRS telling you whether it's accepted or not. So I think that's everything there is for year end. Of course, if you have any questions, or I did receive one person asking me for the checklist. Those checklists may or may not be, I'm going to say no. In the user manuals, as I pointed out, your help is here, help topics. You know, if you ever have a question, you could probably go into the manuals. They may exist in there. This was just a comprehensive one that we came up with. And I guess on that note, unless anybody has any other questions, I think we're done with. Oh, and please let us know if you need the service pack applied, the year-end update applied. We'd be happy to schedule it and get it applied for you, before you have to get your 1099s done. So I guess let me know if you have any questions. If there aren't any, I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you later. All right. Goodbye, everyone.